What if the divine isn't somewhere above the clouds, but right here, in the wind, the trees, and even inside you? In the 1800s, one man dared to say exactly that, and his ideas changed the way the world saw God, nature, and the human soul. His name was Ralph Waldo Emerson, a poet, philosopher, and visionary who believed that every human carries a spark of the divine, a connection so powerful that it could guide us toward a more authentic, fulfilled life. But this wasn't just about religion or philosophy. Emerson's message was dangerous for his time because he challenged everything society believed about God, truth, and authority. He told people to stop searching for meaning in churches or institutions and start looking within themselves. And what he discovered, a mysterious link between nature and the soul, still holds a radical truth for our world today. Before Emerson became one of America's greatest philosophers, he was a man in crisis. Born in Boston in 1803, he came from a long line of ministers, men who preached about God, duty, and salvation. Naturally, young Emerson followed the same path. He studied theology at Harvard and became a Unitarian minister, devoted to serving others through faith. But everything changed when tragedy struck. In 1831, his beloved wife Ellen Tucker died of tuberculosis just 2 years after their marriage. Her death shattered him. Standing at her grave, Emerson began questioning everything: the church, the sermons, even the very idea of God as something separate from the world. He started to wonder, if God is real, why does he feel so distant? Why do we need buildings and priests to reach him? These questions marked the beginning of Emerson's spiritual rebellion. He resigned from the church, sold nearly all his belongings, and set out on a journey across Europe, searching for truth beyond doctrine. There, he met some of the greatest thinkers of his time: Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Carlyle, who introduced him to the idea that nature itself might be divine. When he returned to America, Emerson was no longer a minister of religion. He was a minister of the soul, ready to share a new vision, one that placed the divine within and around us all. In 1836, Emerson published a small book that would quietly ignite a revolution. It was called simply Nature. At first glance, it seemed innocent, a reflection on trees, rivers, and sunlight, but inside its pages was something far more radical. Emerson wasn't describing the beauty of nature, he was revealing its divinity. He wrote, "The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or particle of God." That single line changed everything. Emerson believed that when we step into nature, we don't just see God's creation, we feel God moving through us. To him, the forest was a cathedral, the wind a sermon, and every leaf a sacred text. He introduced one of his most famous ideas, the transparent eyeball. He imagined himself standing alone in the woods, his ego dissolving until he became nothing but awareness. "I am nothing, I see all," he wrote. In that moment, he felt united with everything, man, nature, and the divine, all part of one vast living soul. But Emerson's vision was more than poetry. It was a challenge to scientists, to priests, to anyone who believed that truth could only be found in books or buildings. He was saying, the real temple is the world around you, and the divine doesn't live above you, it lives through you. And yet, this was just the beginning of his most daring idea, that not only nature, but every human soul is connected to a single universal spirit. A few years after nature, Emerson revealed an idea even more mysterious, something he called the Oversoul. He described it as a vast invisible current that flows through every living being, a universal spirit connecting us all. It wasn't a God sitting on a throne or a distant force to be worshipped. It was within us, between us, and around us, a shared consciousness that never dies. Emerson wrote, "Within man is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty." To him, this meant that deep inside each person exists a spark of the divine, not metaphorically, but literally. Every thought, every act of kindness, every moment of intuition is proof of that inner light. But this wasn't just comforting, it was revolutionary. Because if each person carries a piece of the divine, then no church, no priest, no ruler has greater access to truth than you do. That idea threatened the very structure of religion and power in 19th century America. Emerson urged people to listen to that inner voice, the quiet intuition that speaks beneath the noise of the world. He believed that when we trust it, when we act from that higher part of ourselves, we're not just following instincts, we're following the divine current of the universe itself. It was a bold message, one that empowered the individual, but also united humanity through a single sacred bond. Yet, Emerson's vision didn't stop there. He believed this divine connection demanded something more: trust in the self as the ultimate compass of truth. When people hear self-reliance, they often think of independence, standing alone, being tough, doing everything yourself. But for Emerson, it meant something deeper, almost sacred. He wasn't talking about ego. He was talking about faith. Faith in your own thoughts, your own intuition, your own inner voice, because that voice, he believed, is the divine speaking through you. In his essay, Self-Reliance, Emerson wrote one of his most famous lines, "Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string." He meant that within each of us lies a rhythm that connects directly to truth itself. When we ignore it to please others, to follow trends, or to seek approval, we lose that connection, and with it, our authenticity. He challenged his readers to stop conforming to the world's expectations and instead create from within. To him, genius wasn't reserved for the chosen few. It was what happens when an ordinary person dares to trust their intuition completely. But that kind of trust isn't easy. It means standing apart from the crowd, facing doubt, and often being misunderstood. Emerson himself faced harsh criticism. People called his ideas dangerous, even heretical. Yet he believed that no progress, no truth ever came from imitation. For Emerson, self-reliance wasn't rebellion. It was alignment. Alignment with that divine current he called the Oversoul. When you trust your deepest convictions, you're not defying the universe. You're flowing with it. And yet, Emerson saw a growing danger, a world drifting away from this spiritual connection, drowning in material comfort and conformity. His next warning would be one we still need to hear today. As Emerson's ideas spread, they inspired many, but they also threatened the world he came from. He had walked away from the pulpit, but his voice became louder than ever. Emerson believed that organized religion had lost its spirit. Churches, he said, had become echo chambers of habit, places where people repeated beliefs they didn't truly feel. Why should we grope among the dry bones of the past, he wrote, when the living truth is within us? To him, real spirituality didn't require stained glass or sacred rituals. It required presence, the quiet awareness that the divine is here, pulsing through every breath, every blade of grass, every heartbeat. But Emerson also warned of another trap, one that feels eerily familiar today: materialism. Even in the 1800s, he saw people chasing wealth, comfort, and status while losing touch with what truly matters. He called it a kind of spiritual sleep where the soul forgets itself. His antidote was simple yet radical: return to nature. He wrote, "In the woods, we return to reason and faith." Out there, away from noise and ambition, he believed we could remember who we really are: beings of spirit, not possessions. For Emerson, every walk in the forest was a form of prayer, every sunrise a sermon, every moment of stillness a reunion with the divine. He wanted people to wake up, to stop worshiping the material and rediscover the sacred all around them. Because when we lose that connection, he warned, we don't just lose our faith, we lose ourselves. Nearly 2 centuries later, Emerson's words feel more urgent than ever. We live in an age of endless noise: screens, trends, opinions, algorithms, all telling us who to be and what to believe. But Emerson's voice cuts through that chaos like a whisper from another time: trust thyself. He reminds us that truth doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from within. That silence, intuition, and time and nature aren't luxuries. They're how we reconnect with the part of us that the world keeps trying to drown out. When he spoke of the oversoul, he was describing something science and spirituality now both recognize: that we're all connected, not just emotionally, but energetically. Every thought, every action ripples outward, touching others in ways we can't see. Emerson's philosophy invites us to live with that awareness, to act from compassion, not comparison. And in a world obsessed with productivity and perfection, his message of self-reliance isn't about isolation. It's about authenticity. It's the courage to follow your own rhythm, even when the world demands conformity. Maybe that's why Emerson's ideas keep returning in new forms: in mindfulness, in environmentalism, in every movement that calls us back to presence and meaning. He wasn't just writing philosophy. He was giving us a manual for the soul, a reminder that the divine connection he spoke of has never left us. Because even now, the same force that moved through the forests of Concord moves through you. You just have to slow down long enough to feel it. Ralph Waldo Emerson never asked people to believe in him. He asked them to believe in themselves, to see nature not as scenery, but as scripture, to treat every day as sacred and every soul as divine. His life was a quiet revolution, not fought with weapons, but with words that still echo across time. The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. So maybe the question isn't what Emerson believed, but whether we still have the courage to live it. Because the world doesn't need more followers of tradition. It needs more people awake to the truth inside them. Go to the woods, breathe, listen, and remember, the divine you've been searching for has always been right here,